Under the law of Moses, what sacrifice was needed to be offered for extortion of my neighbor? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Leviticus on Walking Through the Bible.
Glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to Leviticus chapter 6. We're going to be reading from verses 1 to 7. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Leviticus chapter 6, beginning at verse 1. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, If a person sins and commits a trespass against the Lord by lying to his neighbor about what was delivered to him for safekeeping, or about a pledge, or about a robbery, or if he is extorted from his neighbor, or if he has found what was lost and lies concerning it, and swears falsely, in any one of these things that a man may do in which he sins, then it shall be, because he has sinned and is guilty, that he shall restore what he has stolen, or the thing which he has extorted, or what was delivered to him for safekeeping, or the lost thing which he found, or all that about which he has sworn falsely. He shall restore its full value, add 1/5 more to it, and give it to whomever it belongs on the day of his trespass offering. And he shall bring his trespass offering to the Lord, a ram without blemish from the flock, with your valuation as a trespass offering to the priest. So the priest shall make atonement for him before the Lord, and he shall be forgiven for any one of these things that he may have done in which he trespasses. In our last episode, we were introduced to the fifth major sacrifice found in the law of Moses, that of the trespass offering. It looks similar in some regards to the sin sacrifice, as it was offered for some sin that was committed. However, it was offered when restitution needed to be made. What we discovered at the end of chapter 5 was one of those instances when restitution needed to be made, which was when you sinned against the holy things of the Lord. In other words, you failed to pay your tithes, your first fruits, etc. In that case, not only was a ram required to be offered for the sin, but the valuation of silver according to the shekel of the sanctuary of what was neglected, plus 20% was required to be paid to the priest when the sacrifice was being offered. Of course, this money wouldn't pay for someone's sin, but was a way of reminding Israel that they weren't to dishonor the Lord by stealing from his sacrifices. Coming now to chapter 6, we find that trespass offerings were not only required when the sin was against the holy things of the Lord, but was also required in certain instances where man deserved restitution as well. In the 10 Commandments found in Exodus 20, the children of Israel were told not to steal, and they weren't also to bear false witness. In other words, they were not to lie in general, but specifically, they were not to lie in court. Now, what penalty would be paid for doing this? A trespass offering would be required. If a person lied in court about what his neighbor gave him for safekeeping, if they lied about the value of what a neighbor had pawned to him or kept as collateral, if they lied about their neighbor robbing them, if they extorted money from their neighbor, or if they lie about not finding something of their neighbor's when they had, then they had sinned, not only against the Lord, which verse 1 does say, but they had sinned against their neighbor. They were to restore what was stolen, what had been extorted, what had been delivered for safekeeping, the lost item that had been found, or whatever else they had lied about. But they weren't only to restore that, they were to restore 20% more of the value about what they had lied about. On the day of the trespass offering was offered, they were to give that value to whomever it belonged. They then would bring the trespass offering to the Lord, a ram without blemish, and the priest would offer it, after which God promised to forgive the person of their sins. Lying was treated seriously under the law of Moses. Not only couldn't you steal from your neighbor or lie about what your neighbor had given you, but when you had been found guilty of doing so, you had to pay a penalty, in this case 20% for lying. This would serve as a deterrent for lying, for in the end, crime doesn't pay, it costs. Today, this idea of restitution still exists. When someone is convicted of stealing or wronging a person, a fine is imposed and the property is returned. The value of that penalty depends on the crime. Under the law of Moses here, it was what was stolen plus 20%. That's not always the case under today's law, but there usually is a monetary penalty that needs to be paid. The point of all this is that even today, under our laws and under God's law, stealing is sinful and lying in general is sinful, but lying about theft is sinful too. What if a Christian steals from someone? What are they to do? Not only do they need to ask God for forgiveness, but if they can make it right with who they stole from, they need to do that as well. We should not enrich ourselves through sin, thinking that I can simply ask God for forgiveness and then keep what I stole. If I can't make monetary restitution, then I should try to do whatever I can in order to right the wrong. For even though I may be forgiven by God, I should also seek to live at peace with all men, which would mean that I would need to seek their forgiveness too for the things that I have done against them. With that, our time is up for today, Lord willing. We hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Leviticus chapter 6, verses 8 to 13, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.